Welcome, dear listeners, to Late Night Science. Here, under the quiet expanse of a sky you cannot see but can always feel, we drift together into mysteries too vast to hold in the daylight hours. Thank you for being here. Whether you are a new listener joining us for the first time, or a familiar presence returning again and again, your curiosity makes this journey alive. If you feel the comfort of these stories, I invite you to gently like and subscribe so our explorations may continue together. And if you wish, let us know in the comments where you are listening from. It is always a wonder to see how this shared night stretches across the globe, connecting us through silence and stars. Tonight, we begin with a whisper that does not carry through air, nor water, nor even the faint vibrations of matter, but through the very fabric of space-time itself. At the edge of space, in the regions where silence deepens into a profound stillness, there exists a presence so strange, so hidden, that it does not shout its existence. It does not blaze like a star, or scatter light like a comet. Instead, it waits, invisible, patient, quietly bending the universe around it. We call this presence a black hole, but listen closely. Black holes are not the monsters they are often described to be. They are not devourers in the way ancient myths might tell of dragons swallowing worlds whole. They are subtler than that. Softer, stranger, more mysterious. A black hole is, in truth, a whisper of gravity pushed to its most extreme, a lullaby of physics sung at the edge where reality trembles. You cannot see it directly, for it swallows light itself, but you can feel its quiet influence. You can see the dance of stars caught in its gravity. You can watch the glowing arcs of gas spiraling toward its horizon. The whisper is silent, but its traces are everywhere. Close your eyes and imagine you are floating in the dark between galaxies. Around you, stars twinkle faintly, but off to one side there is a shadow. Not a shadow cast by anything, but a shadow born of absence. It is perfectly black, yet somehow alive, for its borders distort the space around it. Light that strays too near bends and swirls, as though the shadow itself were a whirlpool carved into the river of space-time. The whisper is not in what you see, but in what you cannot. Science tells us this. A black hole forms when a star, too heavy for its own strength, collapses. The nuclear fires at its heart sputter and fade, and gravity, that invisible hand that binds planets to suns and suns to galaxies, takes over completely. It pulls inward with such insistence that nothing can resist. The star shrinks smaller, denser, until even atoms collapse, until the matter that once shone brightly is squeezed into something so compact that the very rules of space and time bend around it. And then the whisper begins. But the whisper is not only scientific, it is also philosophical. It asks, what does it mean for something to exist only by erasing itself? For a star that once lit the night to vanish into silence, leaving behind not light, but a dark reminder of its collapse. Black holes sit at the boundary between being and nothingness, between presence and absence. They hold a paradox within them. They are there, and yet they are not. They are real, and yet invisible. They erase, and yet their erasure is a form of existence. This is why black holes are not monsters, but mysteries. They remind us that the universe is not made only of things we can see, touch, or measure, but also of absences, of silences, of invisible influences shaping the visible world. They remind us that sometimes the most powerful realities are the ones that whisper rather than shout. As you listen tonight, let your breathing slow and your thoughts drift with this idea. Black holes are not destruction alone, but transformation. They do not merely swallow. They reshape, they bend, they create new contexts for the cosmos to unfold. Like silence in a piece of music or the pause between heartbeats, their emptiness is part of a greater pattern. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of one, though in truth you cannot stand there. You drift closer, and the stars behind you stretch, their light bending, curving, spiraling as though painted on liquid glass. The horizon of the black hole, that invisible boundary where return is no longer possible, waits like a dark shoreline. You do not hear anything, for space carries no sound, but you feel it in the rhythm of your imagination, the pull, the whisper, the strange lull that invites you closer. Science contrasts with imagination here. The mathematics is sharp and clear, equations that predict how matter will behave, how time will slow, how light will curve. Yet imagination paints it differently, as a cosmic abyss, as a mouth of eternity, as a place where meaning itself dissolves. And so you find yourself suspended between two truths, the cold clarity of physics and the warm uncertainty of wonder. Both are needed. Both tell a story, and in that story lies the soothing paradox of black holes. They erase reality, and yet they deepen it. They frighten us, and yet they calm us with their inevitability. They are silence, and yet they speak volumes. As the night stretches onward, let this whisper stay with you. Let it guide your thoughts gently away from the noise of the day, away from the hurried chatter of certainty. Feel instead the soft pull of unknowing, the comfort of vastness, the strange peace that comes from realizing that not everything must be solved to be beautiful. For the black hole, patient in its silence is not only an end, but a beginning. It is the first step into a story that will carry us deeper into gravity's embrace, deeper into paradox, deeper into the strange poetry of a universe that creates by collapsing. And so the whisper at the edge of space lingers. You have heard it now faintly, in thought if not in sound. It calls you closer into the next part of the journey, into the story of how gravity itself gives birth to darkness, and how stars, in their dying, become the most mysterious of children. Gravity has always been with you. You feel it now, gently pressing you into the surface beneath you, a quiet hand that never releases its grip. It holds the oceans to the earth to the sun, and the sun in its orbit around the galaxy. It is invisible yet constant, silent yet unyielding. And though it feels gentle here on earth, it is capable of unimaginable violence. For when gravity is given too much weight, too much mass to govern, it becomes relentless, unstoppable, merciless. From this relentless pull, black holes are born. They are gravity's darkest children. Imagine a star far larger than our own sun, glowing brilliantly, burning through its fuel with a ferocity that dwarfs all human scales. For millions of years it shines, holding a balance between two forces, the outward pressure of nuclear fire and the inward pull of gravity. It is a delicate equilibrium, a dance of opposites. As long as fuel remains, the star resists collapse. But when the fire begins to fade, when hydrogen is exhausted and heavier elements pile into its core, gravity grows restless. The balance breaks. The star begins to fall inward, crushed by its own weight. In that collapse lies inevitability. No force can halt it. Not the bonds between atoms, not the push of particles, not even the repulsion of quantum pressures. Everything yields. The star contracts into itself tighter and tighter until it folds past the limits of what matter can endure. The very fabric of space around it bends, warps, curves inward, and in this collapse the black hole is born. Not as an object like other objects, but as something paradoxical, an object that is defined by erasing itself, an existence that declares itself by vanishing from sight. When you hear of black holes, perhaps you picture them as mouths swallowing everything near them. But think instead of a child of gravity, a strange offspring carrying its parents' will to extremes. Gravity does not create black holes out of cruelty, but out of law, out of inevitability. The star cannot resist, so it surrenders. In its death, it gives birth to something far stranger than itself, a place where not even light can escape. The paradox deepens when you realize a black hole has no true surface. Unlike a planet with rock or a star with plasma, a black hole's boundary is not made of matter, but of geometry, of space-time itself bent to its limit. What you call its edge is simply the point where escape becomes impossible, where even light, the fastest traveler in the universe, cannot return. The black hole exists not as an object in the traditional sense, but as an absence, a hollow, a curve in the map of reality. And yet, despite being defined by this absence, it carries immense presence. Its pull shapes galaxies. Its influence commands stars. Its silence echoes across millions of light years. Here lies the tension between presence and absence. The black hole is absent of surface, absent of light, absent of form. And yet its presence is undeniable, measurable, deeply real. Around it, stars orbit with furious speed. Clouds of gas ignite into radiant spirals as they fall inward. We know it exists not by what it shows, but by what it hides. It erases, and in that erasure it leaves proof of itself. In the stillness of night, let yourself dwell on this paradox. Something can exist by removing itself from existence. Something can be real without being seen. Perhaps you feel a resonance with your own life, the way silence shapes conversation, the way absence defines longing, the way endings carve meaning into beginnings. The black hole, gravity's darkest child, is not merely a cosmic anomaly. It is also a metaphor for the spaces within us, the voids that shape what we are. Scientists measure these children with precision. They track the wobble of stars as they orbit an invisible partner. They measure X-rays from gas heated to incandescent temperatures before it vanishes across the edge. They know with clarity and confidence that these unseen giants are there. And yet alongside the certainty of numbers, there lingers a shadow of imagination. What does it feel like to approach such a place? What lies beyond the veil of invisibility? Science gives one set of answers, mathematics another, philosophy yet another. And all of them circle the same whispering truth. Black holes are children of inevitability, and inevitability is both terrifying and beautiful. Picture again that collapsing star. Its light dims, its outer layers explode outward in a brilliant supernova, scattering elements, carbon, oxygen, iron, the ingredients of planets and bodies and breath. In this death there is creation, for the star's explosion seeds the cosmos with the matter that becomes us. But at its core, gravity tightens its grip, and something smaller, darker, stranger forms. Out of death comes both life and absence. Out of collapse comes both destruction and creation. This is the rhythm of the cosmos, repeating endlessly, written into its very laws. The child of gravity does not end with its birth. It continues to grow if it feeds, swallowing nearby stars, merging with other black holes, becoming larger, darker, more dominant. Some black holes swell to millions, even billions of times the mass of our sun, anchoring galaxies themselves, their gravity shaping the spiral arms of stars across hundreds of thousands of light years. In this way, absence commands presence, and erasure becomes foundation. You begin to see now how strange the universe truly is. You begin to feel the quiet awe of realizing that the brightest of stars can die, and in dying can give rise to something darker, deeper, more mysterious than anything the mind can easily hold. And in that darkness lies a question. If such collapse is inevitable, what does it mean for the universe itself? Could space-time too collapse one day into silence? Could the universe give birth to its own child of gravity? Vast, incomprehensible, final? For now, the black hole remains as a reminder. Gravity is not only gentle, not only the comfort that holds you safe on Earth, it is also the relentless force that, when given enough mass, creates an absence that redefines presence. It is the parent of the darkest child, and that child is both terrifying and tender. As you drift deeper into thought, let the image settle, a collapsed star, invisible yet undeniable, shaping the cosmos by erasing itself. Gravity has spoken, and its child has been born. But what does this child reveal at its edge? Where does its presence become its absence, its silence become its horizon? There, at the boundary, another mystery waits. The event horizon, a line between worlds. Every world has its borders. Rivers divide valleys, shorelines separate land from sea, and horizons mark the limit of sight. But there is one border in the universe that is unlike any other. A border that is not simply a line in space, but a boundary in reality itself. Around every black hole lies such a border. It is called the event horizon. The event horizon is not made of matter. It is not a shell, not a wall of particles, not something you could ever touch with a hand. It is geometry, pure and invisible, a line woven into space-time where escape becomes impossible. If you cross it, no path leads back. Light itself, the swiftest traveler known, cannot return. To approach the event horizon is to approach the ultimate threshold, a shoreline at the edge of being. Picture it. You are drifting toward a black hole, weightless, calm. At first, nothing seems unusual. The stars still glitter. The darkness around you remains silent and vast. But as you draw closer, you see a strange, shimmering boundary, not glowing, not solid, but marked by the warping of everything behind it. Background stars twist, their light bent into halos. It feels like approaching a mirror that does not reflect you, but instead bends the entire universe into new shapes. This mirror is the event horizon. Scientists describe it with precision. It is the radius at which the escape velocity equals the speed of light. Beyond this point, no signal, no message, no glimmer of light can return. In the language of mathematics, the horizon is clear and exact. Equations tell you exactly where it lies, how it curves, how it depends on the mass of the black hole. Numbers map it with certainty, like coordinates drawn on a cosmic chart. But imagination sees it differently. To human thought, the horizon is a mystery, a veil, a one-way door. It is the last surface you can witness but never cross back from. It is both wall and mirror, absence and presence, a place where reality seems to fold inward. For those who remain outside, the horizon is absolute. Nothing can pass it and return. Yet for the one falling in, the horizon is strangely gentle. Nothing announces its crossing. No flash, no sound, no sensation. The boundary is invisible to the traveler, though to the universe it is final. Here lies the paradox. For the outside observer, the horizon is everything. For the falling traveler, it is nothing. Two truths, opposite yet equally valid. The event horizon exists and does not exist, depending on where you stand. In this, it is not only a cosmic border, but also a philosophical one, a reminder that perspective shapes what is real. Think of a shoreline. To someone on the land, it is a barrier, the end of their solid footing. To someone in the sea, it is a meeting place, a blending of two realms. The event horizon is like this, but magnified to infinity. It is both an ending and a blending, both a wall and a passage. To see it from afar is to witness the ultimate prison. To cross it is to know nothing at all, and yet the horizon is not silent in its effects. It tells the universe that something deeper lies within, something unseen but undeniable. It curves light into arcs and rings, a phenomenon we call gravitational lensing. It frames itself with halos of glowing matter, spirals of gas heating to brilliant radiance before vanishing. What you see is not the horizon itself, but the drama unfolding around it. Like a stage curtain hiding the play, the event horizon is both a concealment and a revelation. There is certainty here, equations that define its radius, predictions that match observations, telescopes that image the glowing rings of matter encircling it. And yet, there is mystery too, what lies beyond, what happens within, what fate awaits those who cross. Science gives you a border, but not a story beyond that border. Philosophy steps in, whispering, is the horizon an ending or a beginning? A wall or a door? In the quiet rhythm of thought, you might sense how the event horizon reflects something within yourself. We all carry horizons, boundaries of knowledge, limits of memory, edges of imagination. What lies beyond them is unseen, unknowable, yet still real. The event horizon of the black hole is the universe's reminder that mystery is not only outside us, but part of us. Imagine again the falling traveler. From their perspective, nothing changes at the crossing. They glide silently inward, unaware of the invisible line they have passed. To them, reality flows seamlessly. But to the observer outside, watching from safety, the traveler never quite reaches the horizon. They slow, dim, freeze in time, their image fading, stretched, red-shifted into invisibility. For the outside world, the traveler hovers forever at the edge, never completing their fall. Two stories, two realities, both true. Which is real? Which is illusion? The horizon does not answer. It simply divides. This duality, in the certainty of mathematics and the mystery of imagination, is the essence of the event horizon. Numbers tell you it is exact, a calculable surface. Yet human thought cannot help but see it as symbolic, a line between worlds, a veil between the known and the unknowable. Like a dream, it exists at the intersection of clarity and wonder. As night deepens around you, let the image of this horizon settle softly in your mind.
A border that is not a border, a mirror that reflects nothing, a wall that cannot be touched.
And yet, it is there, waiting at the edge of gravity's child. What lies beyond it? Does time continue? Does space hold meaning?
Or does everything dissolve into silence?
The event horizon offers no answers. It is a threshold, and thresholds exist to be crossed, even if crossing means vanishing. And so you are left with a question, lingering like a soft echo. If the horizon is both present and absent, both wall and mirror, what does it mean to drift closer to it? What does it mean to approach a place where even time begins to falter, where moments stretch into eternity, and where the universe itself seems to slow its breath? Time is something you carry with you everywhere. You measure it in hours and days, in the rising of the sun, in the turning of the earth, in the beating of your own heart. It feels steady, dependable, a river flowing forward without pause. But near a black hole, time begins to betray that trust. It stretches, warps, slows, until what once felt fluid becomes heavy and strange, as though the river has thickened into syrup. Einstein first showed us this. Time is not absolute. It bends with gravity, stretches with motion, shifts depending on where you stand. And nowhere is this truth more dramatic than near a black hole. Here, gravity is not simply strong, it is extreme. So extreme that it bends not only space, but time itself. The closer you drift toward the horizon, the slower the universe outside appears. To you, your heartbeat remains steady, your breathing calm. But to those watching from afar, your rhythm falters, drags, stretches toward infinity. Picture it. You are falling toward a black hole. To your senses, nothing seems unusual. Your watch ticks, your thoughts flow, moments pass as they always have. But if someone were watching you from a distance, they would see something astonishing. With each heartbeat, your movements slow. With each step, your image lingers longer. You seem to freeze just above the horizon, never quite reaching it. Your light stretched into red until you fade away completely. To the outside world, you never cross. To you, you cross easily. Two stories, both true, woven together by relativity. This contrast, the certainty of your own perception against the strangeness of another's, is what makes black holes feel so dreamlike. Time itself becomes relative, fractured, dependent on perspective. The falling traveler experiences a seamless journey. The distant observer experiences an endless hesitation. One reality flows, the other stalls. And yet both are valid. Reality splits into two truths, each undeniable. Let your mind linger on this duality. You know what time feels like? Steady, reliable, always moving forward. But the black hole reminds you that time is not universal. It is not the same everywhere. It is elastic, fragile, malleable. To drift closer to gravity's darkest child is to step into a place where the clock itself loses meaning. Imagine standing far from the black hole, watching a friend fall toward it. You call out, but your voice cannot reach. You shine a light, but it bends and vanishes. You watch as their gestures slow, their waves of farewell linger, their presence stretching thinner and thinner. They never disappear completely, not in your view.
Instead, they smear into eternity as though trapped forever on the horizon. And you wonder, are they still moving?
Or have they become a memory, frozen at the edge of being? Now, shift your perspective inward to the traveler themselves. They feel nothing strange. They breathe, they think, they fall. The crossing of the horizon is uneventful, invisible. They do not notice the point at which time becomes infinite to others. Their own time is smooth, continuous, reassuring. To them, it is the outside universe that seems to accelerate, galaxies spinning faster, stars aging quicker, cosmic history rushing past like a film played too fast. To fall into a black hole is to see the universe's story compressed, sped up, condensed into a single blur. This is the poetry of relativity. Two realities unfolding side by side, each as true as the other, yet utterly irreconcilable. The black hole becomes a mirror, not of light, but of time. It reflects to you the fragility of your assumptions, the delicacy of your perceptions. Time, which you thought was universal, is revealed to be local, personal, a rhythm tied to your place in the cosmos. Let yourself imagine time as a fabric, stretched taut in some places, sagging in others, warped by weight. Near Earth, the stretching is slight.
Near the sun, more noticeable.
Near a black hole, the fabric stretches so deeply that it nearly tears. Clocks diverge, rhythms break, and the harmony of moments becomes dissonant. What you thought was absolute becomes relative. What you thought was steady becomes fragile. There is a soothing strangeness in this. If time itself can stretch, then so too can meaning, memory, perception. The universe whispers that nothing is as rigid as it seems. Even the clock, that most stubborn of companions, yields to gravity's embrace. But here another question arises. If time slows infinitely at the horizon, what happens to the traveler who continues onward? Do they cross into another chapter of existence unseen by the outside? Do they vanish entirely? Or do they remain suspended forever, both gone and present, erased and preserved? The mathematics gives clear predictions, but philosophy lingers on the mystery. How can two realities exist at once? How can something both cross and never cross, both continue and halt? Perhaps the answer lies in accepting both truths. To the traveler, the story flows. To the observer, the story freezes. To the universe, both are real. And so you are reminded of your own life, where perception shapes experience, where time feels quick in joy, slow in sorrow, and yet marches evenly for the clock on the wall. Perhaps time has always been relative, even here on earth, even in the rhythm of your breath. As night deepens and your thoughts grow slow, let this idea settle gently. Time is not absolute. It bends, it yields. It stretches like silk, like water, like a dream. Near the black hole, this truth becomes impossible to ignore. And in that stretching lies both terror and wonder.
Terror because the familiar dissolves.
Wonder because the unknown is revealed. Drifting ever closer, you find yourself asking, if time itself can bend, what lies at the point where bending becomes breaking? What lies deeper beyond the horizon at the heart, where equations no longer hold, where infinities wait, where the very map of reality tears apart? The black hole carries you inward, toward a place not of slow time, but of no time. Toward the singularity, where the story of physics falters and the story of mystery begins. At the center of every black hole lies a silence so complete that even mathematics falters. It is called the singularity, a name that tries to capture what language cannot. Here, the equations that describe space and time do not merely bend or strain, they collapse entirely. Infinities bloom where numbers should be finite and the neat lines of physics twist into contradictions. You can almost hear the equations themselves crack and splinter as if they are unable to withstand the weight of what they are trying to describe. The singularity is not a place in space, not a point you could aim toward like a mountain peak or a distant star. It is more like a boundary in thought, a horizon not of light, but of understanding. Imagine a map of the world that ends in ragged edges where the paper has torn, oceans spilling off into nothingness. The singularity is that tear in the cosmic chart, the place where the map no longer matches the territory. Scientists speak of it cautiously, for they know it marks the breakdown of the very theories that guide them. General relativity, so beautiful and precise in describing the bending of stars and planets, predicts the singularity with ruthless certainty. Yet in doing so, it also predicts its own failure. For at the singularity, density climbs to infinity, curvature to infinity, gravity to infinity. And infinity is not a number that nature uses. Infinity is a signal that our equations have reached their limit, but there is wonder hidden inside this collapse. The singularity is not only an ending, it is also a beginning. In cosmology, the Big Bang itself is described as a singularity, the point where the universe burst forth from nothing into everything. That same paradox appears again here, tucked into the heart of a black hole. A place where everything collapses inward may also be a place where something new waits to emerge. Creation and destruction overlap in a single word. Philosophers have long been drawn to this frontier, where knowledge falters. What does it mean for reality to contain a place that defies description? If every law we know dissolves, does that mean there are deeper laws waiting, hidden beneath the surface? Or does it mean that reality itself is stranger than law? That the universe is not obliged to be simple or solvable or kind to our understanding? Think of the singularity as a mirror to the human mind. When you encounter something beyond comprehension, you face not just the limits of the world, but the limits of yourself. The singularity whispers, here, your questions break apart. Here, your categories dissolve. Here, you must learn to see not with certainty, but with humility. And yet there are hints, glimmers of a future understanding. Physicists search for a theory that unites relativity with quantum mechanics, a theory that will tame the infinities and reveal what truly lies inside. Perhaps the singularity is not a point at all, but a region where space-time is quantized, granular, stitched from threads smaller than imagination. Perhaps the collapse halts at some smallest possible scale, avoiding infinity altogether. Or perhaps what waits at the heart is not matter as we know it, but pure geometry, pure energy, a structure of reality that language cannot yet touch. Until such a theory arrives, the singularity remains an enigma, both terrifying and sacred. Terrifying because it represents the failure of knowledge, sacred because it promises that mystery is never exhausted, that there will always be horizons we cannot yet cross. It is the dark wellspring from which curiosity flows, the reminder that even in the age of science, wonder has not been extinguished. Close your eyes and imagine it. A point without size, yet containing all the mass of a star. A place where time itself ends, yet something persists. A collapse into nothing, and perhaps a seed of everything.
Infinity wrapped in finitude.
Silence wrapped in gravity. You cannot stand at the singularity, nor could you survive the journey there. But you can let its meaning ripple outward into your thoughts. Just as the black hole pulls on light, the singularity pulls on imagination. It invites you to ask questions that may never be answered. It teaches you that the most profound truths are not always the ones you solve, but the ones you learn to live alongside. Consider the paradox: a finite object, like a black hole, containing an infinite within. A boundary in space-time that conceals a collapse so complete it erases the very coordinates that would describe it.
Can infinity truly live inside something finite?
Or is infinity itself only the shadow of our incomplete understanding, a symbol pointing toward truths not yet spoken? As you linger on this thought, notice how the singularity does not close the story, but opens it wider. If what falls into a black hole vanishes into this mystery, what becomes of its information, its identity, its presence? Does it truly disappear, consumed by the abyss? Or is it somehow preserved, hidden, encoded in ways too subtle for us to see? The singularity poses this riddle, then hands it gently forward to the paradox of information itself. At the edge of a black hole, where light bends into silence and time itself unravels, a question arises that troubles both physics and philosophy alike. When something falls past the horizon, does it truly vanish? Or does it leave behind a trace, subtle and eternal, hidden in ways too delicate for us to see? This is the black hole information paradox, a puzzle that stretches between the cold clarity of mathematics and the warm uncertainty of wonder. Imagine holding a book in your hands, its pages filled with words, stories, and meaning. Now imagine tossing that book into a fire. The book is gone, but in principle the ash, smoke, and heat still contain the traces of its story. Physics tells us that information is never destroyed. The laws of quantum mechanics insist upon it. Even if rearranged, even if scattered, the essence of what once was must remain, hidden in patterns too complex to follow. But black holes challenge this certainty. When a star or a planet or even a single atom crosses the event horizon, there seems to be no ash, no smoke, no trace left behind. The horizon swallows not just matter, but the very blueprint of reality. If a black hole were only a prison, locking information inside forever, perhaps that would be tolerable. But the singularity does more than imprison. It seems to erase. It pulls reality down into an abyss where the script of existence might be shredded. And if that is true, the universe itself would become inconsistent, breaking its own deepest rules. This is where physics and philosophy meet. If the universe loses information, then predictability collapses. The neat progression from cause to effect would falter, and the arrow of time would wobble. The book of reality would contain missing pages, torn away without reason. But if information is not lost, then it must be hidden, concealed in the subtle folds of the horizon, encoded in ways too intricate for us to detect. Stephen Hawking, who first gave black holes their voice through radiation, once argued that information truly is lost, that when something falls in, it is gone forever. This was a bold claim, shaking the foundations of physics. For decades, the debate raged. Could Hawking be right? Could the universe itself allow pieces of reality to simply vanish, leaving no echo? Other physicists pushed back. They proposed that the information must linger somehow, clinging to the surface of the horizon like faint writing on invisible paper. This idea gave rise to the holographic principle, the suggestion that the three-dimensional universe we experience may be encoded on a two-dimensional boundary, much like a hologram stores an image. In this view, everything that falls into a black hole leaves behind an imprint, delicate but indelible, woven into the fabric of the horizon itself. Think of it like whispers in a room. You may not hear them, but the walls remember. The air carries traces of sound, vibrations imprinted in molecules. The universe, too, may remember, not in ash or smoke, but in the trembling geometry of space-time. Reality, stretched thin between presence and oblivion, may still hold every story. And yet the paradox endures. If the black hole someday evaporates, if it fades away entirely, what happens to the information stored upon its skin? Does it leak back into the universe in subtle signals encoded within the radiation it emits? Or does it disappear quietly in defiance of everything we believe about physics? The tension is unbearable and beautiful. On one side stands the cold insistence of quantum mechanics. Information cannot be destroyed. On the other side stands the vast silence of the black hole, which seems to consume all meaning without mercy. Between these two truths lies the paradox, a place where reality is stretched like a fragile thread, quivering between certainty and mystery. For the philosopher, the paradox is a meditation on memory. If the universe itself can forget, what does that mean for us, who are built of its patterns? Are we temporary arrangements of information, destined to fade without trace?
Or are we too encoded in ways we cannot yet see, woven into the fabric of space-time, remembered even after we are gone?
For the scientist, the paradox is a call to discovery. It is the signal that our theories are incomplete, that a deeper truth waits beneath the surface. Somewhere, hidden between the laws of gravity and the laws of the quantum, lies the key that will resolve this riddle. Perhaps it will tell us that information is painted upon the horizon like a cosmic mural. Perhaps it will show us that radiation itself carries whispers of the past, fragments of every story the black hole has swallowed. Or perhaps it will reveal a truth we cannot yet imagine, a truth that reshapes not just black holes, but the very meaning of reality. Close your eyes and imagine a universe where nothing is ever lost. Every word ever spoken, every light ever shone, every thought ever thought, all preserved, encoded in the fabric of existence. Then imagine the opposite. A universe where forgetting is built into its bones, where oblivion is as real as memory, where erasure is inevitable. Which vision feels truer? Which feels more comforting? Which feels more terrifying? The paradox leaves you suspended between these visions, rocking gently between presence and absence, between clarity and uncertainty. It does not resolve. It does not comfort. And yet, in its silence, it beckons. It tells you that even the greatest minds of our age wrestle with the same questions that keep you awake at night. And as this question lingers, a new discovery reshapes the horizon. Once again, Stephen Hawking, the very man who first insisted that black holes consume information without mercy, finds a new truth. Black holes are not eternal prisons at all. They are fading giants, glowing softly as they lose their mass to the cosmos. The paradox deepens and the story turns. For centuries, black holes were imagined as eternal prisons. Once something crossed the event horizon, it was believed to be lost forever, sealed in darkness that would outlast the stars. They were thought to be permanent scars in space-time, unchanging, unyielding, infinite in their hunger. But then came a revelation, as gentle as it was profound. Stephen Hawking, in the quiet power of his mind, saw something that no one else had noticed. Black holes, he realized, are not eternal after all. They breathe, they whisper, they fade. The discovery was paradox wrapped in poetry. A black hole, so defined by its ability to swallow light, was discovered to emit its own. Not the blazing light of stars, but the faintest glow, a slow leaking of energy from the vacuum itself. Hawking radiation, it would be called, a name now etched into the history of science.
Imagine it. From the edge of the event horizon, particles rise like ghosts from nothingness, pairs of them flickering into being.
Normally, such pairs would annihilate instantly, cancelling one another out. But here, In the curved geometry of space-time, one particle falls inward while the other escapes outward. The black hole loses a tiny fraction of its mass, and the universe gains a whisper of radiation. This process is imperceptibly slow. A black hole as massive as a star would take longer than the age of the universe to evaporate. Yet the principle is staggering. Black holes, once thought immortal, are in fact finite. They age, they diminish, they end. Think of the image: a giant of gravity, dark and silent, slowly shrinking, slowly cooling, until one day it vanishes completely. What remains then? If everything that fell inside is bound to that singularity, what happens when the black hole itself is gone? Does the information re-emerge in the final whisper, encoded in the faint trickle of radiation? Or is it lost forever, carried into absence? This is where absence acquires weight. For when a black hole evaporates, it leaves behind not just emptiness, but a question, a silence heavy with memory. Imagine a library burning so slowly that the books turn to ash, one grain at a time, scattered across billions of years. By the end, no book remains. Only the smoke drifts outward, carrying hints and fragments that may or may not be enough to reconstruct the stories. That is the image Hawking's revelation leaves us with. The cosmos filled with the fading embers of what once was, information dispersed, uncertain, unresolved. Some physicists argue that the radiation itself carries the lost information, subtly encoded in patterns we do not yet understand. Others insist that it cannot, that the information is gone, forever shredded by the singularity. Between these positions lies the heart of the paradox. Does the black hole vanish cleanly, leaving no trace, or does it leave behind a final gift, a cosmic diary written in faint, flickering energy? Hawking's fading giants remind us that even the most fearsome entities in the universe are not immune to change. They too are bound by time. They too are finite. There is something almost tender in that realization. Black holes, once imagined as monsters, become more like autumn leaves, brilliant in their silence, destined to wither and fall. The most eternal things we can imagine are still temporary, still fragile, still passing through the same cycle of birth and death that governs stars, galaxies, and even us. Philosophically, this fading is both a comfort and a sorrow. Comfort, because nothing is permanent. Even darkness is transient. Sorrow, because the fading may take with it the record of all that was consumed.
Reality itself may vanish without remembrance.
Memory may not be absolute. The universe may be more like a dream than a ledger, more like music, fading than a monument standing. But perhaps this is the deeper beauty. Perhaps it is not permanence that gives meaning, but transience. A black hole's final whisper is not a failure of the universe, but a reminder that nothing is immune to impermanence, not even the strongest of giants. Everything fades, yet everything leaves a trace, whether in radiation, in memory, or in the quiet wonder stirred in the human heart. As you drift in thought, imagine the night sky billions upon billions of years from now. The stars themselves have long since burned out. Galaxies have dimmed. What remains are black holes fading slowly, releasing the faintest glow into the void. Their whispers ripple outward, carrying the last echoes of a luminous universe. Each fading giant is a storyteller, its final act unfolding across eternity. And when they vanish at last, silence will deepen again. Not empty, but full of questions. Where does everything go? Where do the stories end? Do the whispers of Hawking radiation preserve the past, allowing the universe to keep faith with its own memory? Or does the cosmos allow forgetting, letting the book close with missing chapters? The paradox deepens, unresolved yet irresistible, tugging at both scientist and dreamer. And here the horizon shimmers once more with controversy. If black holes truly fade, if their end is written in radiation, then what happens at their very edge? Is the horizon the smooth and gentle passage Einstein imagined, a place where nothing feels strange as you fall through? Or is it something far more violent, far more cruel, a firewall of energy that incinerates anything daring to cross? The giants fade, but the debate burns brighter than ever. At the boundary of a black hole, where gravity gathers into its most delicate yet merciless shape, lies one of the fiercest debates in modern physics. The event horizon, that invisible line dividing the knowable from the unknowable, has always been imagined as a curious paradox, deadly from the outside, yet strangely gentle to the traveler who crosses it. Einstein's equations suggest that if you were to drift across this cosmic border, you would feel nothing unusual.
No flames, no shattering of atoms.
Just the quiet continuation of your fall, seamless and smooth. But then came the fire. A thought experiment whispered into the world of physics suggested that the horizon may not be soft at all. Instead, it could be a blazing wall of energy and a firewall, erupting at the very edge, incinerating anything that dares to enter. If this is true, the black hole is no longer a gentle gateway into mystery. It becomes a furnace, a place where reality itself is shredded before the plunge has even begun. The idea shocks because it challenges not only black holes, but the principles of physics itself. General relativity promises continuity, a graceful glide through the horizon. Quantum mechanics promises that information cannot be lost. Yet when you try to hold both promises together, contradictions ignite. To save information, the horizon may have to burn. To save smoothness, information may have to vanish. Firewalls or gentle horizons. The universe seems unwilling to grant both. Imagine yourself at that border. In one vision you cross without knowing, the stars behind you fading, the pull ahead strengthening, and your body unaware of the moment when outside became inside. In another vision you strike a wall of pure energy, your atoms unraveling instantly, every trace of you erased in an instant blaze. Which vision is true? Science does not yet know. Even the greatest minds disagree, their arguments circling like galaxies around this paradoxical edge. There is something profoundly human in this uncertainty. We want the universe to be consistent, to be kind, to honor the stories it tells. We want it to promise continuity, to allow the traveler a final moment of grace as they slip across the horizon. But what if the universe is harsher than that? What if its kindness is an illusion and its true face is fire? Philosophers have long asked whether reality is gentle or cruel, whether nature nurtures or destroys. The firewall debate brings that ancient question into the realm of physics. Here, it is not only about morality or meaning, but about the fabric of space itself. Is the cosmos soft at its boundaries, or does it hide violence behind its veil of silence? Perhaps, though, the paradox tells us something deeper. Perhaps the universe cannot be confined to such opposites. It may be both kind and cruel, both smooth and fiery, depending on the angle from which you approach. To the falling traveler, perhaps the horizon is smooth, their journey seamless. To the outside observer, perhaps fire blazes at the edge, ensuring that information is preserved. Reality, then, becomes layered, perspective-dependent, refusing to be pinned down to a single description. This possibility reminds us that truth is not always one thing. Just as light is both particle and wave, perhaps the horizon is both smooth and burning, depending on who is looking. And just as the universe itself is shaped by the act of observation, perhaps the horizon reshapes itself depending on what questions we ask. Close your eyes and imagine the horizon not as a single state, but as a shimmering mirage, shifting between gentleness and fire. To one observer it is a gateway, to another it is a wall. Both views are true, both incomplete. And within that shimmering uncertainty lies the beauty of the paradox. The debate remains unresolved, but it points us toward a profound realization. Our maps of reality are shadows on a deeper surface. If the horizon can be both smooth and violent, then perhaps we have been looking in the wrong dimension altogether. Perhaps the true secret of the black hole lies not within its depth, but upon its surface, a place where information, fire and smoothness all coexist, encoded in ways we cannot yet decipher. And here, from this tension, a new vision arises, the holographic principle. The idea that the black hole may not be what it seems at all, that everything it contains may be projected upon its surface like shadows cast on a screen. That depth itself may be an illusion, and that the truth of the black hole is written on its edge. The fire burns, the horizon shimmers, and a new question unfolds. At first glance, a black hole appears to be a devourer. It swallows matter, consumes stars, erases light, and hides everything behind its unyielding horizon. For centuries, this image of endless depth has haunted the imagination, a pit without bottom, a well with no end. But what if this picture is wrong? What if black holes are not defined by their insides but by their surfaces? This is the heart of the holographic principle. It whispers that the three-dimensional volume we imagine inside a black hole may not exist as we think. Instead, every detail, every atom, every photon, every story that falls in might be encoded on the horizon itself, like patterns etched into a cosmic skin. The interior, then, becomes a kind of illusion, a projection of the information that rests upon the edge. Picture a hologram, a thin sheet of film, flat and ordinary to the eye. Yet when light strikes it, a three-dimensional image springs to life, a depth that isn't truly there but appears real to the observer. The holographic principle suggests that black holes work the same way. Their depth may be a trick, their reality painted on the surface. This is not only a poetic metaphor, but a precise mathematical idea. Calculations show that the amount of information a black hole can hold is proportional not to its volume, but to its surface area. It is as though nature writes its secrets not in the depths, but across the boundary, each square of space holding a tiny fragment of the universe's story. If this is true, then black holes become not prisons of forgetting, but libraries of remembering. Every particle that enters, every flash of radiation, every trace of cosmic history might be woven into the horizon's texture. The black hole does not lose what it consumes.
It transcribes it.
What seems like disappearance is transformation. What looks like erasure is preservation. And here the paradox shifts. Reality itself may be holographic. If black holes, the most extreme objects in the cosmos, operate in this way, perhaps the entire universe does too. Perhaps what we experience as depth, as solidity, as the vast three-dimensional theatre of space, is itself a projection, a hologram written upon a distant boundary. The stars above you, the ground beneath you, the breath you draw, all might be shadows cast from a surface beyond your perception. Such an idea is dizzying, yet strangely comforting. If reality is holographic, then nothing is ever truly lost. Everything that passes, every moment lived, every fragment of matter dissolved is still there, inscribed in the cosmic ledger. It changes form, but its trace endures. Close your eyes and imagine a black hole as a screen of light. Not a mouth swallowing, but a canvas recording. The surface flickers with the signatures of galaxies, of stars, of travelers who once fell too close. From a distance it is silent, featureless, dark. But up close it hums with infinite detail, a living memory of all it has touched. Philosophically, this shifts the question of what is real. If the depth is illusion,
And the surface is truth, then what of our own lives?
how much of what we call reality is projection? When you gaze into a mirror, the image looks deep, yet you know it lies flat upon glass. Could the cosmos itself be a mirror showing us depth where only a surface exists? Science leans into this with equations, but imagination gives it texture. Perhaps consciousness itself is holographic, your thoughts, your memories, your sense of self projected from something deeper, something hidden. Perhaps what you see as your life unfolding in time is another kind of projection etched on a surface you will never see. And yet, even if reality is holographic, its beauty does not fade. The illusion of depth is still a depth we experience, a stage upon which the universe performs. Illusion does not mean falsehood. It means that the truth is richer than what we see. The black hole then becomes both a teacher and a question. It teaches us that surfaces may hold more than interiors, that edges may define more than centers. And it asks us whether our own universe is also written on a cosmic boundary, flickering its projection into our lives. Gently, the horizon no longer feels like an ending.
It feels like a veil.
Not a wall of fire, nor a place of loss, but a shimmering surface where secrets are stored and shadows are cast. Beyond it may lie nothing or everything or something we cannot yet imagine. But on it rests the code of reality itself, the script of existence written in a language we are only beginning to read. From this realization flows a new dream. If black holes are not pits but holographic screens, then perhaps they are also doorways, not into their depths, for depth may be illusion, but into bridges across the fabric of space-time itself. From the horizon, imagination drifts naturally toward tunnels, passages, shortcuts through the dark. The holographic surface becomes not just a mirror, but a map that might lead not downward but elsewhere, perhaps across galaxies, perhaps across universes, and so, as the flickering hologram dissolves in your mind, a new question emerges, quiet and irresistible. What if black holes are not ends but beginnings? What if they are doors, not walls? Imagine drifting at the edge of a black hole, gazing into its horizon, feeling the pull of something deeper than space and stronger than time. For so long it seemed to be an end, a place where journeys halted, where light and memory dissolved. Yet human imagination is restless. It refuses to stop at walls. It asks gently but insistently, what if this darkness is not a grave but a gateway? This question gives birth to one of the most enchanting ideas in physics, the wormhole. A bridge through space-time, a tunnel that bends geometry itself into a passage between distant regions. The concept begins not in fantasy but in Einstein's equations. Mathematically, space-time can curve in such a way that two faraway points connect directly, like folding a sheet of paper and letting two marks touch. The wormhole is that fold, a shortcut where the vastness collapses into immediacy. Visualize the universe as a fabric stretched wide. To travel across it the long ways, to walk its surface, step by step, star by star. But a wormhole pierces through, sewing together regions that would otherwise be impossibly distant. To cross such a passage would be to cheat the tyranny of light years, to slip between worlds as easily as stepping through a doorway. Science tempers this dream with difficulty. A wormhole, if it exists, is fragile, delicate as gossamer. Left alone, it collapses instantly under the weight of its own gravity. To hold it open, theories suggest one would need a substance stranger than any known matter, exotic energy with negative pressure, something that repels rather than attracts. Without it, the passage pinches shut before even a photon can pass. Yet the idea persists, for it touches something deeper than equations. It speaks to our yearning for escape, for connection, for discovery beyond barriers. When you look at a black hole and wonder if its depths conceal a door, you are not only asking a scientific question, you are echoing the ancient human impulse to step beyond the horizon, to find a way where none seems to exist. Consider how stories have always woven portals into their fabric. Caves leading to hidden realms, mirrors reflecting other worlds, doorways standing between ordinary and extraordinary. The wormhole is science's echo of these myths. It is the modern form of an ancient hope, that somewhere in the dark there is a passage that leads us through. Some physicists imagine black holes paired with their opposites, white holes, which expel rather than consume. In this picture, a black hole could be the mouth of a tunnel, devouring matter here and spewing it elsewhere, perhaps in another region of our universe, perhaps in another universe entirely. Such speculation is daring, but it reveals the breadth of possibility when mathematics stretches to its edges. Others see wormholes as bridges not just across space, but across time. If you could stabilize such a tunnel, the geometry might allow one end to move differently through time than the other. Step through and you could emerge not only in a distant place, but in another era. Past and future might be stitched as closely as two sides of a page. The paradoxes this creates are staggering, but the imagination lingers anyway, unable to resist. Even if wormholes remain forever unreachable, their existence in theory changes how we see the cosmos. They remind us that space is not fixed, not rigid, but pliable. The stage upon which the universe plays is not flat and simple, but a fabric that can fold, twist, and even connect upon itself. To contemplate wormholes is to glimpse the flexibility of reality, and to realize that what feels impossible might simply require a different perspective. In the quiet of night, the thought of wormholes feels like an invitation, not a promise, but a whisper. Perhaps you will never walk through such a passage. Perhaps no one will. Yet the very possibility alters the way you see the stars. They are no longer just distant fires scattered across a void. They are points that may, in some deeper geometry, touch and overlap, waiting for pathways we have not yet discovered. There is also humility here, for if wormholes exist, they might be hidden, tiny, flickering in and out of being at scales too small for us to perceive. Quantum foam, the restless jitter of space-time at unimaginably small distances, may be threaded with such tunnels, appearing and vanishing like bubbles in a restless sea. To the cosmos, they may be everywhere. To us, they remain invisible, teasing us with their presence, and so wormholes stand at the intersection of science and story, mathematics and myth. They may never become vessels we can sail, but they are vessels for the imagination, carrying us across the limits of what is known. They keep alive the possibility that the universe, in its quiet generosity, holds more doors than we have yet opened. As you drift in thought, picture a black hole not as an ending, but as a passageway.
Picture light vanishing not into destruction, but into transit.
Picture yourself walking through the darkness and emerging somewhere utterly new. A distant galaxy, another version of reality, or perhaps the memory of a universe long gone. And here the question begins to turn again. If wormholes are possible, if they can carry matter, energy, or even information across the void, then perhaps black holes themselves are not silent. Perhaps they are not only doorways outward, but archives inward. Perhaps they do not just connect places, but preserve them, storing the whispers of what has fallen. What if, instead of erasing reality, black holes are keeping it safe, like cosmic diaries, sealed in darkness, waiting to be read? You pause for a moment and wonder, when something falls into a black hole, does it vanish forever? Or does the universe, in its quiet and careful way, keep a record? The thought is unsettling at first. Black holes are often imagined as destroyers, cosmic shredders when nothing survives. But what if instead of erasing, they are remembering? What if they are not monsters at all, but keepers of secrets? Imagine a diary locked and hidden away, each page filled with moments, each line pressed with meaning. A black hole may be just such a diary on a cosmic scale, recording not with ink, but with gravity, storing what it has consumed not in pages, but in layers of warped space-time. To think of them this way softens their image. They become less like devouring mouths and more like libraries, dark vaults of memory scattered through the universe. Physics offers whispers that support this vision. The surface of a black hole, its event horizon, is not blank, but encoded. Tiny ripples, faint patterns, fluctuations so delicate they seem invisible. These could be the traces of everything that has ever crossed the threshold, written into the fabric like notes on the margin of reality. Some scientists call this the holographic principle, the idea that information is never truly lost,
only transformed, pressed flat onto the skin of the horizon,
waiting to be read. If this is true, then a black hole is not a tomb, but an archive. Its gravity may trap matter, but its surface may preserve the essence of what has been swallowed. Every atom, every photon, every vibration of a star or whisper of radiation, all compressed into an intricate code stored with a precision that defies imagination. Like a cosmic librarian, the black hole does not destroy the book. It locks it away. Of course, the record may not be legible to us. To human eyes, the black hole appears mute, its horizon a perfect mask. Yet the possibility that information survives resonates with something deeper than science. It mirrors our own longing for memory, our refusal to believe that what is meaningful can never truly disappear. We want the universe to remember, just as we want our lives, our stories, our voices to echo beyond their moment. Consider how this transforms the way we see them.
Instead of emptiness, they become fullness. Instead of erasure, they become conservation.
What falls into a black hole is not obliterated, but translated, compressed into a language we have not yet learned. The library may be sealed, but its shelves are still intact. And perhaps this is why black holes feel so mythic. Cultures across time have imagined places where memory is stored, halls of records, divine scrolls, the book of life. Science now offers its own version, dressed not in myth, but in mathematics. Yet the echo is unmistakable. Black holes as cosmic memory keepers connect physics to philosophy, the cold clarity of equations to the warm ache of human longing. Think of the stars that once burned brilliantly, their light touching worlds and minds. When they collapse into black holes, is their story erased, or is it kept held in the secret structure of space-time? Perhaps every laugh, every spark, every photon once released still lingers there, encrypted in the horizon's surface. In this view, black holes become monuments to memory, their silence not emptiness but depth. And if every black hole is a vault, then the universe itself is dotted with archives. Across galaxies, scattered like beads on a dark string, these vaults may hold the chronicles of existence. Each one carries within it the history of stars, planets, and perhaps even civilizations that have wandered too close. The cosmos may be filled with diaries we cannot yet open, but which patiently preserve the past. There is a kind of comfort in this. For if the universe remembers, then perhaps nothing we do is ever entirely lost.
Every movement, every particle, every wave may be recorded somewhere, held in trust by the silent giants of gravity.
It is not immortality, but it is remembrance, a cosmic assurance that meaning does not simply vanish into the void. Still, the paradox remains. We cannot yet read these diaries. We cannot turn their pages or decipher their code. To us, they are sealed vaults, mysterious and inaccessible. And this raises a tender question. Is memory still memory if it can never be retrieved? Is a story still a story if no one can hear it told again? Here, science blurs into philosophy. For memory is not only about retrieval, but about existence. To be remembered does not always mean to be recalled. Sometimes it simply means not to be erased. In that sense, black holes may indeed be cosmic memory keepers, guardians of a past that continues to live even in silence. As you drift into thought, imagine the black hole not as destruction but as preservation. Picture it not as the end of a story, but as a vault in which stories sleep, waiting for a language vast enough to unlock them. Somewhere in those shadows, perhaps, the universe is remembering itself. But memory, even cosmic memory, faces its own horizon. For black holes do not last forever. Over inconceivable spans of time they fade, shrinking, evaporating into radiation. And if they are memory keepers, then their deaths carry a haunting weight. What happens when the librarian itself vanishes? What remains when the vault dissolves into nothingness? The thought lingers like a note held softly in the dark. If black holes remember, then what becomes of memory when even they are gone? There is something solemn in the thought that even black holes, those giants of silence and shadow, are not eternal. They appear timeless, immutable, absolute. Yet they too are children of the cosmos, subject to its rhythms of birth and death. Their endings are not quick or dramatic. They unfold slowly, almost tenderly, across spans of time so vast that human imagination falters. To speak of their death is to speak of the patience of the universe itself. The discovery came from Stephen Hawking, who showed that black holes are not completely black. Though nothing can escape their grip in the classical sense, quantum fields shimmer at their boundaries. Virtual particles, usually fleeting and paired, find themselves torn apart near the horizon. One falls inward, the other drifts away. To an outside observer, this is radiation. The black hole glows faintly, ever so faintly, leaking energy into the darkness. The glow is unimaginably faint for large black holes. A black hole of stellar mass emits less radiation than a candle lost in the oceans of night. Yet the mathematics is clear. The leak continues. The radiation carries away energy, and energy is mass. Slowly, imperceptibly, the black hole shrinks. Over eons longer than the age of galaxies, longer than the beating heart of stars, longer even than the life of atoms, the black hole fades. To picture this is to picture time stretched to the breaking point. Imagine 1 trillion years passing, then another and another. Stars have gone dark, galaxies have thinned into lonely whispers, and still the black hole waits. Patient, steady, dissolving itself into the fabric of the cosmos. What once consumed everything now gives itself away, particle by particle, until only a faint memory of mass remains. The end is quiet, but it is not without drama. As the black hole grows small, its evaporation accelerates. What once took eons begins to quicken. The glow brightens, the radiation surges, the giant collapses into a final outburst of energy. And then silence. The horizon vanishes, the singularity evaporates, and the black hole is gone. This death is unlike the death of a star, which explodes in brilliance. It is unlike the death of a planet, which crumbles into dust. The death of a black hole is more like the exhale of a long, long breath, a cosmic sigh after aeons of endurance.
It is not destruction but release.
A lullaby written not in sound but in silence, and yet within this silence rests a haunting question. If black holes are the keepers of memory, if they preserve the whispers of everything they have consumed, what becomes of that memory when they vanish? Does the information dissolve with them, or is it carried outward with their final breath of radiation? Does the universe itself lose a part of its history, or does it keep the story encoded in forms we cannot yet see? To think of this is to feel both melancholy and wonder. The greatest erasers in the cosmos are themselves erased. The devourers fade into nothingness. It is as if the universe, in its long journey, cleans its own canvas. The places once marked by gravity's darkest children become open sky again, the vaults unlocked not by revelation, but by vanishing. Perhaps this is a comfort, for the end of a black hole is not violence, but gentleness. It is not a scream, but a whisper. It is the universe reminding us that even the most powerful of structures are transient, that permanence is an illusion, that time itself is the only true giant. Black holes endure for longer than stars, longer than galaxies, longer than matter itself, but not forever. And in their impermanence, they join the cycle that defines all things. Consider for a moment the perspective of the cosmos itself. To us, the evaporation of a black hole feels impossible, so long is the timescale. But to the universe, which measures in eternities, the fading of black holes may be like the dimming of evening lamps, one after another, until the sky is bare. A gradual darkening, a slow hush as the last traces of energy dissolve into the quiet sea of space-time. It is a humbling vision, a universe emptied not by force, but by patience. The great engines of creation long silenced, the stars extinguished, and at last the black holes gone too, leaving nothing but thin radiation spread across infinite distances. The cosmos itself seems to drift into slumber, the final lullaby written in faint afterglows. Yet even here, curiosity lingers. For what truly remains when the eraser itself disappears? Do we wake to a deeper truth, some hidden layer of reality that persists beyond even this? Or is the fading of black holes the last word, the quiet final page of a story that began with fire? The questions hover like stars unseen behind clouds, waiting for some future insight, some deeper theory to illuminate them. Until then, we rest with the vision of endings, slow, soft, and inevitable. The death of a black hole is not the end of the universe, but it carries the feeling of an ending, a reminder that all things, no matter how vast, pass away, and in that passing a new question forms. One that leads us not outward, but inward. If even black holes can die, what of us, small conscious beings who gaze upon them? What does it mean for awareness to face the edge of existence? What would it mean to carry a mind, a self, into the heart of a black hole where time and memory dissolve? As the universe exhales the last of its giants, the focus shifts to you, to consciousness itself. Standing at the edge of physics, asking not only what the cosmos remembers, but what it feels like to be the one remembering. To speak of black holes is to speak of extremes, extremes of space, of time, of gravity. But there is another extreme they invite us to consider, the edge of consciousness itself. For when we imagine a person falling into a black hole, the physics becomes tangled with the inner mystery of awareness. What does it mean for a mind to approach the horizon of no return? The story begins outside where the fall is first observed. To a distant watcher, the traveler never truly crosses the event horizon. They appear to slow, stretched by gravity's grip, their light fading, their signals growing weaker. From far away, it is as if they are frozen in place, suspended on the very threshold of darkness. To the observer, the traveler becomes an eternal ghost, hovering forever at the edge. But from the traveler's own perspective, the story is different. Time does not freeze. The fall continues. The horizon is crossed without pause, without ceremony. There is no boundary, no signpost, no line in the dust.
One moment you are above, the next you are inside.
And from there, the descent deepens into realms where the ordinary language of experience falters. Here lies the paradox. The outer world sees one truth, the inner world another. Consciousness finds itself stretched between them, like light split into twin paths. Which is the real story? The eternal hovering or the plunge into silence? Both are true depending on where one stands. Awareness becomes entangled with relativity itself. Now imagine the traveler's mind. At first the fall is gentle. The pull of gravity is immense, but so evenly distributed that the body drifts without pain. There is weightlessness, a strange calm, a feeling of being carried rather than pulled. The stars above grow bright and strange, their light bent into arcs, their colors deepened. Space itself seems to swirl into patterns never seen before. But as the descent continues, the gradients of gravity sharpen. Tides rise across the body, stretching, squeezing, pressing consciousness into a narrowing corridor of sensation. Perception itself becomes distorted. Time feels different. Seconds lengthen, then compress. The familiar rhythm of thought begins to break apart. Awareness is pulled toward the singularity like water drawn into a whirlpool, and here the deepest questions emerge. Does awareness end in an instant as the body is destroyed? Or does perception linger in strange new forms, stretched into moments that feel eternal? Physics offers equations, but no equations can tell us what it feels like for a mind to be unmade. Some suggest that consciousness simply ceases, extinguished like a flame starved of oxygen. Others wonder if perception slows infinitely, so that the final instant is experienced as endless. Still others imagine that the singularity itself, that place where space-time folds into mystery, might hold awareness in ways we cannot yet frame. These are not answers, but meditations. For what lies beyond the horizon is hidden not only from sight, but from experiment. We cannot send instruments inside and expect them to return. We cannot test what it means for a thought to cross into the forbidden region. The only tool left is imagination, guided by the fragile touch of science. It is tempting here to let myth step in, to picture the black hole not as an end, but as a passage, a tunnel for the soul, a corridor into new realms of being. Human cultures across history have imagined thresholds where consciousness is tested, rivers to cross, gates to pass, fires to endure. The event horizon feels like one of these ancient symbols written on the cosmos itself. And perhaps that is why black holes feel so deeply connected to our own fragility. They are mirrors. They force us to ask not only what happens to matter, but what happens to us. The us that feels, remembers, wonders, and dreams. The mathematics of curvature and entropy brush against the poetry of mortality. In this meditation, one realization emerges: the very act of imagining consciousness at the edge changes how we see ourselves. It reminds us that awareness is delicate, transient, precious. Whether the fall ends in silence or in transformation, the journey itself is enough to awaken awe. Consider again the traveler. Falling deeper, surrounded by the distorted glow of stars, they may feel both terror and peace. The boundary of self blurs as space stretches around them. Their thoughts scatter like light bent by gravity, yet something persists, a spark, a witness, a final clarity. To contemplate such a moment is to glimpse the limit of both physics and philosophy, and yet perhaps the greatest truth is this: even as we imagine the traveler's fate, we remain outside, looking inward. Consciousness is always both observer and participant. In asking what it means to fall into a black hole, we are also asking what it means to be awake at all, to carry a mind through the fabric of existence. This is why black holes matter to more than astronomers. They are thresholds not only in space-time, but in thought. They stretch the reach of physics until it brushes against the sacred questions of being. They remind us that science is not only about equations, but about wonder. The wonder of asking what it feels like to exist in a universe so strange. And just as we reach this threshold, a new perspective opens. For black holes are not only destroyers, not only challenges to consciousness. They are also creators. They shape galaxies, drive the formation of stars, ignite the engines of cosmic growth. What appears as an ending may in fact be a beginning. What appears as erasure may also be creation. So we turn the page once more, from the fragile poetry of falling awareness to the generative paradox of black holes themselves. The question now becomes not only what they take, but what they give. For much of our journey, black holes have appeared as erasers, cosmic sinks that swallow matter, energy, even information, leaving only absence in their wake. They are framed as destroyers, the ultimate voids. But if we step back, if we widen our gaze from the intimate drama of falling stars and vanishing light to the sweep of galaxies across the universe, another truth emerges. Black holes do not only consume, they also create. Consider the center of a galaxy. At its heart sits a supermassive black hole, millions or billions of times heavier than the Sun. Around it, stars orbit in dizzying dances.
Vast disks of gas spiral inward, heating as they fall, glowing as if in defiance of the darkness waiting below.
Out of this process, galaxies take shape. The black hole, far from being a silent reaper, becomes an architect. It organizes the swarm, binding the luminous city of stars together with its invisible gravity. Without such anchors, the galaxies we see scattered across the night sky would not hold their form. The spiral arms would not swirl, the clusters would not cohere. The universe itself might be a more formless place. In their silence, black holes give galaxies their structure, and through galaxies, the stage on which stars, and eventually life, emerge. The paradox deepens when we turn to the engines of creation that black holes ignite. As gas falls toward the event horizon, it does not vanish quietly. It compresses, heats, and erupts. Jets of energy stream outward, some stretching across thousands of light years. These outflows seed galaxies with the elements of life, stirring the cosmic soup, preventing it from collapsing too quickly. In this way, black holes regulate creation, shaping when and how new stars are born. Imagine it, a black hole, that most infamous destroyer, scattering the very ashes from which new suns will arise. It is like a fire that consumes wood but throws sparks into the air, sparks that ignite fresh flames across the dark forest. The act of erasure becomes inseparable from the act of generation. This is the hidden symmetry, creation and destruction, two sides of the same cosmic coin. We are used to thinking of them as opposites, but black holes remind us that they can be one. By swallowing, they sustain. By erasing, they give form. By taking, they make possible. The human spirit has always wrestled with this paradox. Across myths and religions, there are deities of destruction who are also gods of creation. The flood that drowns a world also clears the ground for new life. The fire that raises a forest enriches the soil for growth. Black holes echo these ancient intuitions, showing us that the cosmos itself is written with the same pattern, and in a very real sense we are children of this paradox. The heavy elements in our bodies, the carbon in our cells, the iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, were forged in the hearts of stars. But the formation of those stars, their clustering, their growth, their death, were all shaped by the gravity and feedback of black holes. If galaxies are the cradles of stars, black holes are the midwives. Without them, the universe might be lifeless dust, spread thin and cold across infinite space. It is strange, then, to realize that our very breath carries the mark of something born from absence. The same voids that terrify us also made us possible. The same silence that seems to erase the universe has also written its most vibrant chapters. Here, science brushes against philosophy again. For if destruction and creation are inseparable, what does it mean to label anything an end? Perhaps there are no true endings, only transformations. Matter shifting form, energy changing role, reality folding itself into new patterns. A dying star collapses into a black hole, yet its death sends ripples of gravity across the cosmos. A galaxy spirals around its central void, yet from that void comes order and coherence. Even the eventual death of a black hole, its evaporation into faint radiation, may seed the universe with the faintest whispers of possibility. Black holes teach us that erasure itself can be fertile, that silence can carry memory, that endings can give rise to beginnings. As we stand at this point in our meditation, we might ask, do black holes create reality itself? Not just the galaxies we see, not just the stars that burn, but the very fabric of existence as we know it? If the holographic principle holds, then the information of the universe may be encoded on their horizons, like reality projected from their surfaces. If their gravitational presence organizes the cosmos, then, in some sense, the universe unfolds from their influence. They are not just features of reality, they are shapers of it. This thought is both humbling and exhilarating. It suggests that what we fear as annihilation is also the engine of being. that the dark voids scattered across the cosmos are not wounds, but wombs. They are cosmic paradoxes, reminding us that the deepest mysteries are never one thing or the other, but always both. And so the black hole becomes more than a subject of astrophysics. It becomes a metaphor for life itself. Our own lives, too, are made of beginnings that are also endings, losses that give rise to growth, silences that hold the seed of renewal. To reflect on black holes is to reflect on our own place in this strange balance, where creation and destruction dance as one. As this chapter closes, we feel the paradox settling into quiet, the destroyer revealed as a creator, the void revealed as fullness, the darkness revealed as a source of light. And with that, we prepare to turn toward the final meditation, where all these themes gather into stillness, for beyond creation and destruction, beyond information and erasure, beyond fear and awe, lies the quiet itself. The silence that follows the music, the calm that follows the storm. In the hush of night, when the stars glimmer faintly above and the world around you is finally still, the mind drifts back to the questions we have been holding. What are black holes, truly? Are they monsters that consume?
Are they doorways into other realms?
Are they prisons where light itself surrenders? Or are they fountains from which the shape of galaxies springs? Perhaps the answer is that they are all of these things and yet more. They are contradictions wrapped in silence. They erase and yet they preserve. They destroy and yet they create. They terrify and yet they comfort. They are at once the universe's darkest prisons and its most generous passages. As you linger in their shadow, you realize that black holes are not only features of the cosmos, but mirrors of thought itself. They reflect back to us our own longing to understand, our own dance with fear and wonder, our own restless search for meaning in the unknown. They are edges that we cannot cross, but also horizons that inspire us to reach farther. When you think of a black hole now, perhaps you do not imagine only darkness. Perhaps you imagine the swirl of a galaxy held together by its hidden gravity. Perhaps you imagine the jets of light and energy streaming across thousands of light years, ignited by the very process of collapse. Perhaps you imagine the quiet possibility that all the stories of matter and memory drawn into them are not lost, but written in some secret script upon their horizons. And perhaps you imagine, too, the silence beyond. The silence that follows their final breath when they evaporate into nothingness over time scales so vast that even the word eternity feels too small. That silence is not absence. It is not despair. It is the silence of a universe still humming with possibility, still brimming with wonder. For in the end, black holes leave behind more than they take away. They leave behind galaxies spinning in their wake. They leave behind mysteries that ignite our imagination. They leave behind the reminder that creation and destruction, far from being enemies, are partners in the same cosmic dance. They leave behind questions, questions that will outlive us, questions that will carry human curiosity forward long after our brief lifetimes, and perhaps, most of all, they leave behind a quiet that is not empty but full of wonder, full of possibility, full of the recognition that reality itself is stranger and more beautiful than we can ever fully grasp. It is tempting to think of black holes as ultimate ends, as punctuation marks at the close of cosmic sentences. But endings are never quite so absolute. Just as stars collapse only to give rise to heavier elements, just as silence after music allows the song to linger in memory, the black hole's end does not erase what came before. It folds it, reshapes it, carries it forward in unseen ways. The quiet beyond the horizon is not a void, but a presence. It is the presence of everything we cannot yet know, waiting patiently for us to imagine it. It is the invitation of the unknown calling softly for us to continue the journey. And so, as our meditation draws to a close, we circle back to the beginning, to the whisper at the edge of space, to the thought that the universe is not only something to measure and map, but something to wonder at. to the truth that in gazing at black holes, we are gazing at the paradoxes within ourselves, our fear of endings, our longing for beginnings, our recognition that silence itself can be a kind of music. Tonight, as you drift toward rest, let the thought settle gently. It is okay not to know everything.
It is okay to live with mystery.
Curiosity itself is a kind of peace. The universe does not ask you to solve it. It asks you only to wonder, and in that wonder, there is comfort. In that wonder, there is connection. Across time zones and continents, across cultures and languages, countless others look up at the same night sky and feel the same pull of curiosity, the same quiet awe. Where are you listening from tonight? What time is it where you are? The simple act of sharing those small details connects us, like stars connected by invisible threads across the dark. Thank you for traveling this journey with Late Night Science, for lending your ears and your imagination to this meditation on black holes, those haunting and tender guardians of the cosmos. To those who have been with us before, thank you for returning. To those who are new, welcome to this circle of wonder. If this journey has soothed you, inspired you, or simply accompanied you into the quiet of night, we invite you to like and subscribe, to join us again on future explorations. But for now, let go the questions.
Let the paradox rest.
Let the silence deepen. For beyond all horizons, beyond all maps, beyond even the grasp of light, there is stillness. And in that stillness there is the gentle truth that you are part of the universe, and the universe is part of you. Black holes remain mysteries, and perhaps they always will. But perhaps that is their gift, to remind us that mystery itself is a kind of presence, a kind of beauty, a kind of endless horizon within us. The quiet beyond is not emptiness. It is infinite wonder.